So, Ramesh, when you run a program, what is the bandwidth of a target consumer? Like, for instance, how long can you hold on to a consumer using a screen?
Well, that is interesting because it again comes down to the sort of engagement we plan. And I would say there is no set number because it depends entirely on the sort of give and take. So, example, if, like example, during a tournament, we have like a giveaway coupon with a target, say 100 shares of this video will have a progressive bar, and at 100 you get a set of coupon codes visible on screen, right? Then people will stay on, and we've seen that happen, and then people are retained. But if it's just an advertisement shown, it's much less, right? So that's what I mentioned earlier. We sit down with the brand, we come up with a concept, we come up with a strategy. How do we get the brand out there? How do we get people, like you rightfully said, to retain and stay on? Sometimes it's maybe at a physical event it's different. It's a different ball game altogether. But if it's online, it's a different strategy we need to take. And it depends. There is no fixed number or fixed way, I'd say. Again, it comes down to the brand and how we can approach the brand, how we can see how we can integrate it natively with the tournament, with the event, with the type of content they want to create, that sort of thing.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another People of Action webinar session. Today, our topic is esports brand strategy, and we have an amazing personality here with us. So I would like to welcome Dr. Rohan Tatukorala, the pioneer behind this webinar series, to formally introduce our speaker. Dr. Rohan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. We got a amazing personality whom I actually met at the USAID conference last week, and I was able to convince him to give us a little bit of time to speak to us. He's the director of InGame's Esports, Gamer.lk, leveraging more than 15 years of experience in the IT and the esports sector, a seasoned tech aficionado with a focus on esports production, REMI, which is remote integration, and broadcast workflows, leading an enthusiastic, youthful team dedicated to delivering exceptional sports gaming ventures throughout Sri Lanka and South Asia. He's a trailblazer for driving innovation and solution to the world of business. I found him absolutely amazing when I listened to him, and I mean, I started believing in Sri Lanka when I listened to him. He's a secretary of the Sri Lanka Sports Association since 2021, focused to driving innovation and fostering industry advancement. He's a bachelor's degree in business administration from Malaysian Science University. He's an Olympic Solidarity certified sports administrator and volunteers in the selection committee in Sri Lanka's Sport Association. Ladies and gentlemen, I suppose the future belongs to the youngsters, and these are the kinds of innovative products that will really drive the landscape change in Sri Lanka. We have, technically speaking, we do this media advertising, TV, radio, press. We do below the line activity, we have sponsorships. We go into retail outlets and put up point of sale material, that kind of thing. And now, of course, we have this whole area of digital advertising on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and of course, YouTube. And we always try to see how we can funnel awareness into the choice set of consumers to get in, and then subsequently a consumer picks your brand. But our personality today has brought out a new vehicle where companies can reach out to consumers, get their excitement going, and ultimately get them to use your brand. Ladies and gentlemen, the director of broadcast and production at InGame's Esports and Gamer.lk, Ramesh Liyanage. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hunt. Thank you very much for the introduction. Very kind of you for the kind words and all of the things that were mentioned. So let me get right to it. Esports as a brand strategy. So I'm going to give you guys a very brief introduction as to what esports is, first of all, before I venture into how we can use it as a brand strategy. I will be touching on a few examples from how we have done certain, integrations with brands that we worked with in the local as well as the South Asian market. So quick introduction. I don't think I need to do this, but just for the sake of the slide, who I am the director of broadcast and production at InGame Esports and Gamer.lk, and I'm also the secretary of the Sri Lanka Esports Association. So let me get right to it. What is the difference between video games and esports?
Ramesh,
yes,
just a quick view of your audience right now here with you.
Yes.
So that you will get a better idea. We have people
Sure.
from Dialogue.
Oh, okay. Right.
Very senior people. We have people from tuning in from Aramco in Saudi Arabia.
Mhm.
We have people from Virtusa, JK Marketing, Stacks. Then we have Crystal Property Developers. Then we have people who are from who are basically lawyers, LLBs.
Right.
Then there are hoteliers who are joined from Maldives. Then we have Lanka Kirnis or MD Jam, one of the group heads here.
Right.
Then we have one of the largest, the best sought after university in Southeast Asia, which is INSEAD, one of the seniors on the program here. Then we have people from manufacturing industry,
Right.
distribution of Orange Electricals. We have people who are in the pet care industry. Then we have people joining in from Japan. He's a video broadcaster.
Right.
Then we got people from, the public sector, like the Urban Council in Kegol. We have people from the education sector like ESOFT. We have people very senior joining from the Asia Pacific Institute of Technology. And then, of course, we have people joining across in different other disciplines in the service industry, as well as the manufacturing industry. So you got an array of people. And
Yes,
then we
very
also have
diverse.
Ramesh, and also there are people, as you know, ambassadors who will be joining in from other parts of the world,
Right.
who have been on this program before. You'll have CEOs, about 121 CEOs who have been on this program from Unilevers and the Nestles and the large multinationals, Hidalgo, Reckitt's and tobacco, and you name it, Land Brewery to, all these guys. So sometimes they get hooked on and they say, I'd like to understand how this engages to brand strategy. So we'll be having an array of people.
Sure.
And within like 2 weeks, you might have about 400 key people you'll be getting exposed to. So just a little bit of a background. Over to you, Ramesh.
Thank you so much for that. It's a very diverse crowd, and I'm privileged to be here amongst all of you. It's a great pleasure to talk to everyone. Just to recap, so we're talking about esports as a brand strategy. I'm just going to skip past this. Getting right into what is the difference between video games and esports. I'm sure everyone here at least has played some sort of video game in their life, be it when they were in school or maybe after, just even something like Candy Crush on their phone. I'm fairly certain. So if you look at the difference between this, what is video games and esports, it's that the video games is the casual side of things, whereas esports is the competitive side of the competitive play of video games. So this is actually also called one of the fastest growing sports in the world. And it is a sport. So that's the most important thing here. It is recognized as an official sport. I'll be touching on some of those points as well during this. And it is recognized globally as well as in Sri Lanka. Most importantly, it is a huge industry. It is a very wealthy industry, and it is growing exponentially year on year. So it's projected to reach US dollars 3.96 billion in 2023. According to Statista, and according to them, they are projecting that the esports market volume will grow to around US dollars 5.543 billion by 2027. So if you look at the numbers, it's huge, and it keeps on growing each year, each quarter, it keeps growing. And in terms of the ecosystem. Esports is built around a bunch of people, or rather stakeholders, if you may call them. So we have your players. These are the teams as well as individual athletes who compete at esports events, who take part. Then we have coaches. There are professional coaches who support the system, support the players, make them compete at the next level. Then you have people called shoutcasters, who are commentators, hosts, and people who do shoutouts for brands, for example, at events. I'll get back to them later on in the presentation. And then you have people who do analysis of the matches. You have referees. I'm just going to skip past this, but just giving you an overall idea that this is a very vibrant sport with so many different elements involved in it. And then you have a big production team, which I am in our company. I actually head this department, which is why I have a lot of involvement in this. So we have people called observers, who are like the cameraman in a cricket match, who would be across the stadium. These are the same people who would be inside the game, looking at each angle inside. And then you have a huge broadcast production team who would be actually mixing all this and putting this out onto Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, sometimes even terrestrial TV. And something that's very important in this industry is that there is a bunch of people called streamers and influencers. I'm sure you must have seen the big image there, Tyler Blevins, that's Ninja. He was on many magazine covers, and he was covered some time ago. So streamers play a very vital part in esports and video games, because they create content around these games, around these tournaments, and around these engagements, which takes this to the audience. So that creates a very native sort of engagement, and that creates a very direct line of engagement with an audience, which is traditionally very hard to reach. And on the right side, you can see a couple of Sri Lankan influencers. I'm sure you might have seen Mania before this, a very well-known streamer and personality in Sri Lanka. So these are some of these examples. So like I said, there's a lot of money involved. That means there's a lot of brands involved in esports. So if you look at just a few brands that I put here from things that we worked in Sri Lanka for. So these brands actually sponsor these events. Sometimes it's the teams, sometimes it's a different activation at an event. All of these, involvements that a brand comes into this esports industry is because esports is a spectator sport. So like any other sport where you'd have a cricket match with, just like right now the Asia Cup is being played, there's only two teams of 11 or 12, 15 players, but there's a huge millions of people spectating it, watching it right around the world. Same goes with esports. With esports, there's a huge fan following for each individual athlete, sometimes the team, and that drives people to come. And in terms of statistics, it's been projected that it will overtake traditional sports somewhere next year. It already has in the US and North America to a certain degree. Sports like golf has been overtaken by esports, but it's growing even to it's just shadowing the bigger sports like basketball, football, and things like that. If you look at the age range, anyone from the 26 to 35 age range right now, if you ask them, there were surveys being done across the world on this, then they watch video game content as much as they watch traditional sports. So that's a huge, number if you look at that age demographic. But if you go lower than that, the next generation, so to speak, 18 to 25, they watch video game content 77% more than the traditional sports content. That is a big task to understand, because that generation is what's going to grow older, and as they grow older, they keep watching the game content, the video game content, and esports content. So the reason that these people keep tuning into esports matches and follow their athletes is because esports is so rich, like I said, and there are huge prize pools being offered. And if you look at the whole competitive side of things, people want to watch their athletes compete at these events and see how they take part and win, and how they do their best. And there's a lot of rivalry and competitiveness across all these titles. So for example, if you look at esports and video games, there's different forms. You have PC games, mobile games, you have console games. So League of Legends, this example that I put here, is a PC game. It's a real-time strategy PC game, which is one of the biggest in the world, and in terms of viewership, last 2022 event, they had 5.1 million concurrent viewers for the final. So which is a huge number in terms of, spectators. These are primarily on YouTube, Twitch, and online platforms. But there are certain countries where they actually have, certain television stations, like for example, in Korea, where they dedicate airtime for esports. And it's a huge industry in that aspect. In terms of physical spectators, this is another statistic we talk about most often. The Intel Extreme Masters 2017 had around 173,000 plus spectators across the event days. This is not in one stadium on one day, but across the event days. But the sheer number tells you how big this industry is and how much people are interested in it. I'm just going to quickly rush through this because I want to get to the actual meat of this whole presentation, but just want to give you the understanding of the whole industry itself. So if you look at Fortnite, they have a huge prize pool, which they gave in 2019, a 30 million prize pool. So that's why people want the athletes to take part. They want to see people compete at this level. So this was actually at the Arthur Ashe Stadium. This is a tennis stadium, which was completely converted to an esports event. And if you look at even higher prize pool, this is the Dota 2 international event. This is Dota 2 is another RTS game, a PC game, just like League of Legends. And that had a $40 million prize pool. This is in 2021. And just to compare that with a traditional sport, not to, do a big comparison with every game, but if you look at cricket, for example, we are all familiar with cricket. So the ICC Men's T20 World Cup that was just completed last year, 2022, the entire prize pool for the tournament was $5 million. So if you look at it, that number is shadowed with, in comparison with how much esports prize pools are big. So this is just a breakdown of a couple of titles from last year, which have given out prize pools in millions of US dollars. So everything from, Arena of Valor, PlayerUnknown, Battle. These are all titles, different titles across all the platforms. Looking at esports itself, like I said, it's an official sport. It was first demonstrated at the Asian Games at an Olympic. So we have Olympics, you have Asian Games, then you have Southeast Asian Games, all these other little continental events. So at the Asian Games 2018, it was first showcased as a demonstration title, where even Sri Lanka took part. But this year, they have announced it as a medal title, which means that a team from Sri Lanka is actually competing at the Asian Games alongside athletics, alongside cricket, alongside swimming, all the other titles, to actually secure a medal for the country. And we have actually 4 athletes who will be competing for this later on in the year. They'll be actually flying towards the middle of September, actually. And that is the Asian Games. But if you look at Southeast Asian Games, for example, they were actually having this as a medal sport from 2019. So they've been ahead of the game in terms of understanding the potential of esports, which is why I told you, like in Philippines, Korea, Southeast Asian countries, they have a very keen knack to identify their talent and push esports athletes as well as the whole industry forward. If you look at the Olympics, like I mentioned, right now the story is to get esports at Olympics, which has also happened with the 2020 series, where this was not a medal sport, but it was just held alongside with it. And this year we had the Olympic virtual series, again happening in Singapore alongside. This is all promoted with the Olympic banner and held separately, though not a medal sport yet. So the conversation right now is to get esports included as a medal sport, maybe after 2024. Right now, 2024 titles have been announced and it's not a medal sport yet. So that brings me to Sri Lanka. What has esports been doing in Sri Lanka, and how has the industry been growing from 2007? So we've, had our first tournaments from 2007 to 2008. And from that point forward, we've actually grown exponentially. So there has been a lot of hype and conversation around esports. And in 2019, we actually were able to get esports registered as the 70th sport in Sri Lanka. And that means it's an officially recognized sport and governed by the sports law of Sri Lanka under the Ministry of Sports. And the entity that actually governs or handles the governance aspect is Sri Lanka Esports, just like Sri Lanka Cricket does for cricket. So that's why that part of things is all handled by the association. And there is a national team, just like the ones that are taking part in the PUBG Mobile title for Asian Games. There are other titles which we send players for as the national team. They'll go take part and they come back after that. And there's a lot of content created around it. And I think since you mentioned Dialogue is a main sponsor of the national esports team as well. And these are all things that the association handles, and that's the governance side of things. We also have a national ranking system where at any point we have tournaments. These all feed into these ranked tournaments feed into the national ranking, and then at the end of the year we have an esports award ceremony where we give out a best award, a best member organization award, as well as a colors award ceremony for everyone who's represented Sri Lanka. So it's a very flourishing and a thriving ecosystem in Sri Lanka for esports. Like I mentioned, Dialogue is actually powering the Sri Lanka esports team and as the official sponsor. So that brings me to our company, Gamer.lk and InGame Esports. So Gamer.lk started off in 2007. InGame Esports is actually our international brand that we go outside Sri Lanka with. So we actually have worked with many countries, many partners across borders. Right now, we're very active in the South Asian region, but even outside that, we have worked on certain projects across the board. And this has given us a lot of versatility and also a very good understanding on how to reach each target market separately. In terms of Sri Lanka, just a very broad view. We have around 4 million gamers. These statistics are from global data as well as publisher data. So publisher data means, like, for example, PUBG Mobile is published by Tencent. Then you have League of Legends published by Riot Games. Each publisher has their own, statistics of how many people play their game, etc. So these are statistics that we've put together from all of these sources. And out of this, we have a majority that is mobile gamers, which is why we actually you might see in the next slides that I've focused a lot on mobiles, engagements, purely because our region, especially South Asia as a whole, is very popular with mobile gaming is very popular with South Asia. And there are reasons for it, of course, because of accessibility being one. Mobiles are accessible by everyone very quickly. In terms of gaming itself, it's not a niche anymore. Everyone everywhere has at some point been a part of this ecosystem, maybe through a friend, maybe through a teammate, maybe through a significant other, depends. But just browsing through all of this, I just want to give you an overall understanding in terms of the types of gamers in Sri Lanka who we work with. So we know that there's a huge percentage of them who are casual gamers, whereas there's a bit lower percentage of more enthusiastic gamers who actually they just play for the fun and they just want to try out new games, try out as they get released, they buy games, etc. And then there's an even smaller niche, which is where the professional esports athletes are. So professional esports athletes are the people who get paid salaries, who they get training, they have a proper schedule that they need to play with. They take part in international tournaments and then they win and that sort of thing. So those are the esports athletes type. So these are just examples of a few individuals who fit into each of these demographics. So just to give you an overall idea of what we do and how we have leveraged brands, I want to give you an understanding of our company. So we actually work with our own IP, where we have created a set of events where we operate them and own them, so we can then get brands involved with them. Then we also provide event services and production services and all sorts of digital strategies and execution services, where we can then take that experience from our events, from the 15 plus years that we've been in this industry, and then apply that for any brand that wants to get into this space. We are able to work with. And also we have our own technology and our own platforms, which we use to drive all of this with. I just want to touch on a quick video so that you have a better understanding of what we offer. Let me just play this.
Gamer.lk has pioneered the esports movement in the country through consistent events, projects, and community building. Gamer.lk organize international esports events in an effort to position Sri Lanka as the hub for esports in South Asia. Gamer.lk's events cater to all school and university students, mercantile-level athletes, and those playing at a national or international level. No longer niche, these events attract higher participation than their traditional sports counterparts in the country. It's time for you to embrace esports and join us on this journey.
Right. So that's just a look at some of the events that we do and some of the pictures from those events. Just want to give you an understanding of what these look like and, what they are. I'll quickly run past this. I just don't want to take time on explaining each of these, but these are some of the events that we work with. So we work with the South Asia Cup, where we actually, we organize the event, we fly down athletes from each of these countries, and we hold this in Sri Lanka. So one main aspect here is that we understand that Sri Lanka is uniquely positioned as, a geopolitically neutral country, where we are able to take athletes from Pakistan, India. Anyone can come here. But if you look at India, they can't have Pakistani athletes coming there. They can't have Bangladesh athletes coming there. So which is why we want to have esports, basically Sri Lanka position as a hub for esports in the region. So, and we think we are uniquely suited and able to do that, which is this event is actually testament to that. We've actually done one edition already, but the second edition got curtailed because of COVID. We're hoping to do that this year with a different format, with our own spin to it. We also have our year-end event, which is called the Sri Lanka Cyber Games. This has been happening from 2008. We stopped it during the COVID period, but we're hoping to do this again. We have over 3,000 plus participating, with over like 10,000 footfall across 3 days that we have. So this has more of a festival vibe. It's not just esports, because we touch on everything that aligns with it. So we have pop culture elements, the cosplay side of things, different aspects. Then we also have one of our biggest events, the Esports Premier League, which I'll be touching on right after this brief, which is where we have a franchised esports league system, where we created with actually PUBG Mobile last time. And this was with, we've actually amplified it with getting cricket celebrities involved to be esports mentors for each, franchise team. So don't take the wrong impression. They don't play PUBG Mobile. Don't take from this presentation that Malinga played PUBG Mobile, not really, but they do a role where they mentor the teams that take part. I will get into the actual tournament later on, but this is also one of our main events, which we actually did this at Stein Studios last time. And then we also have a couple of other events which we do for each tier. So we have mercantile, school, university. So this is actually also one of our biggest events, mercantile esports events, where we have corporates taking part. And we've had, huge success with a lot of, engagement around it. And we have the inter-university sports event. This is the same, except it's universities taking part. And I think APIT won one year, if I'm not mistaken. It was the first year, I believe. So kudos to them as well. And so we have a huge engagement around this. Each event has its own sort of, set of people who talk about it online, who create content. And there's a lot of engagement around these events. And actually this 2019 event, we actually held it with Stein Studios. We actually had a TV program that went on TV1 after the event, where we did like a sort of a recap of the event, talking about how the event progressed and who won, etc. So that was also a first time sort of experience for us, because we keep trying new things. And as we try new things, we bring brands along with them, with us rather. So I'll actually touch on a few of these experiences and what we've done at some of these events moving forward. And so this was our inter-university event. And then we have our inter-school event. I think out of the 3 events for these tiers, this is our most hyped event. This gets a massive number of, attention, and even our participation for our physical event last time was in 2019. We moved it online after that. Even during COVID, we were able to do our events, because the beauty of esports is that it's remote. You don't need to come all the time. You can play online. So we were able to do our events even through COVID. And our last physical event actually had schools taking part, even from JAFTA. So they have principals who'd send their kids in a bus which is great because, back in the day, I'm sure when you all were in school also, I don't think that would have been the case, even for me. So it's very refreshing and exciting to see that sometimes, this sort of engagement actually goes through to them. Of course, being the, secretary, I should emphasize there have been a lot of instances where we get calls and, we had to explain the whole industry and what this is also, that also happens. And also another thing what we do around these events is we create clubs around these different tiers. So for Mercantile, we try to promote them to create their own sort of esports club. For universities, the same. For schools, the same. So even with school level, we were able to do this with places like Royal College, Gateway, Peter Wrights, St. Peter's, Maliadev, etc. Then we also have a racing championship, and we also do events for the female demographic, because we position esports as a gender neutral sport. And that's why we actually announce this each year, and we have this event happening separately. So like I said, we do all of these with our own sort of capabilities, from conceptual stage all the way to marketing, amplifying, getting participants, refereeing the matches, broadcasting the matches, and then making sure that we meet KPIs. So that's the important part, because we work with brands who have KPIs of their own. So we sit down with the brand and talk to them and make them, we first need to make them understand that if they are to reach a gamer, they need to speak like a gamer. The first point about esports as a brand strategy is that your brand needs to start speaking the gaming language, right? And for that to happen, you need to start thinking like a gamer. You need to convey that message like a gamer. And that comes from visuals, of course, that's one part of it. Then the language and tone, that also has to happen. So these examples that I'm showing you on these slides are actually from brands and content that we've created. So for example, for Samsung members, we actually did some meme type content, because that's the sort of content that gets consumed and absorbed by this demographic. And you need to kind of match and understand the sort of people that you're speaking with. Language and tone is very important. And also the sort of campaign types. It's not always going to work with the sort of, day-to-day posts, but you need to have a campaign around your brand. You need to figure out a way where you can get the people looking at your post to engage, maybe through a vote, maybe they take part in a stream, that sort of thing. So before I move into examples, I just want to mention this also. There's something that ran on Adweek a couple of years back, actually. So I think it's more relevant now than then. This is before COVID. Any brand not marketing in the esports world is already behind the curve. So because that was back then, it was $1.5 billion industry. If you see now how big it is, you understand what this statement says. So moving forward, I just want to touch on some quick engagements that we did with certain brands. So one of our first ones I want to touch on is the Singer Esports Premier League. So this was done in 2021. So this is the first year after COVID, we did this online. And this event was sponsored by Singer, as you see, and we had a bunch of sponsors with us for this event. And I'll just tell you how we touched on each of them. But before that, I just want to give you an understanding of what this tournament is. So this is a PUBG Mobile League, where we, like I showed you, we have the franchised teams. For these franchise teams, we open registrations publicly. So anyone can register and start, basically try to get themselves into a team. And that process had like a huge number of registrations, thousands of people registered. And out of that, we sort of filtered it down with matches, and they played. And then each team had their sort of allocations done through an auction system. So we had managers for each franchise. So we just gave, points. These are not actual cash. These are just points that we allocated to each team. And we told them, okay, here's your player pool, start recruiting. And we had, I think, a 5-hour auction done online. All of these graphics, everything was done entirely by us. The auction system was done entirely by us. And this auction then had those teams created, or rather people assigned to each team through their managers. And then those teams were assigned their mentors. The mentors were from the celebrity cricketers, basically. And that sort of created a whole engagement around it. And the mentors themselves, the cricketers themselves, created a whole lot of content which we actually created for them and worked with them for. And they also did a couple of mentor sessions, which I'll show you a couple of those screenshots as well. So just wanted to highlight here that each session, or each post rather, each piece of content that they created carried those brands along with them. So it got amplified. The message that we put on our page gets amplified by each of these mentors. And that carries a lot of value. That carries a lot of value because it's not just, the fact that it's the person as a reputed individual, but in terms of reach, because these personalities have huge reach on social, especially Lasit Malinga, Sanat Jayasuriya and them. So that creates a lot of content. So in terms of, creates a lot of reach rather. So in terms of each brand, we also had a couple of customized engagements. So like I said earlier, we sit down with the brand, we sit down with the brand team, sometimes their agency, we sit with them and understand what their KPIs are, how we can work to make sure that their brand gets integrated on our tournaments, on our platforms, on our activities, and then push these sort of engagements out. So we did something with Dell Gaming where people were commenting Dell at EPL on the stream just to win a laptop. And that had huge reach. And then we had also their brands included, of course, in the live streams across all these, platforms where we do live streams. All of the brands were integrated. Then in terms of Sprite, we had another interesting sort of engagement there where we said register and follow, and then that will give you the chance to sort of win. It was a phone that they'd be winning. And then there was another campaign we did with them, post a picture of your gaming setup with Sprite. So they just go on, Instagram or whatever, post a picture, hashtag it, and then we'd collect it. So these posts and these pictures were shown on the live stream as well, thereby reinforcing the brand, creating that engagement, and then doubling it almost with the live stream engagement as well, because people see their post on the stream, sometimes takes a screenshot, puts that on a story again and tags the page, which just continues on. So it just snowballs on, right? And the interesting part here was, like I said earlier, we had, I think, a bunch of sponsors, right? So Samsung was one of them. So like I said, this engagement, the two campaigns had a prize, which was Samsung phone for each campaign. So therein we just reinforced the brand itself with another another brand in the same campaign as well. So that sort of thing is what we want to always do, because that sort of feeds in, and it's very native, and it feels uniquely original within the ecosystem of the tournament as well. Besides that, for the shoutcasters, remember I told you that there are people called shoutcasters who are the commentators. We had them during the broadcast where they'd be using a Samsung phone, talking about the latest model, talking about why it's a good brand or investment for a gamer. We also had Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. So this is a very interesting thing where we had snack breaks in between matches, in between sessions, where we actually had Pizza Hut and Taco Bell send each of these shoutcasters to their homes, different sort of package each day, because this ran for a few weeks. So each day there was a different thing sent, and then they'd engage on the stream and they'd find out what they have, and then talk about the product, etc. And then we also had a couple of awards which we customized with the event itself. So Grenadier means most number of grenades thrown by a player. We customized it for Taco Bell. Similarly with other engagements, also with Pizza Hut. So these are all things that where we kind of wanted to get the brand out there for each brand. And what happens with these is, now say for example Merash or Godzi, once they get tagged by our page or the tournament page as the winner, they usually repost that, and that just again creates that snowball effect with all the content going outside, which is a beautiful aspect of it. Then with Moose, we had Moose actually give the outfits for the casters. They sent across outfits, and that was showcased through the broadcast as well and through social posts. And we also had a couple of other engagements with Moose, where Moose branded award for the most stylish player was created. We created that genuinely for the tournament, where we'd have like our team, production team, and referees looking at the most stylish player in the match, and we'd award that person a Moose gift pack. And there were moments from the finals where we had shortlisted those and put it on socials or through the broadcast itself, and we asked people to comment what is their favorite, and then through that we picked up winners. And then there was another tag and win competition we did for them on socials. So all these little engagements we create for the brands. Like I said earlier, I want to mention that these don't happen overnight. We sit with the brand and we want to understand them, because esports is a beautiful, sport and a beautiful ecosystem where we can do a lot of things, especially there's a lot of technology involved. So we always go the extra mile to make sure that we can take the brands across. We had freebie, so all the points, during the qualifiers, we actually gave some prize money within that. And the prize money was equivalent to points that they secured in the game. And we transfer all of this through freebie, so that direct engagement for the brand is supplemented, and different sort of engagements. And like I said, all the coverage that we get, to be it from influencer or a streamer or from a news outlet, from Newswire, or any of these places, the brands get carried along as well. So that's the beauty of this whole engagement. And all of these posts that were reshared, and they created a lot of engagement, and these all sort of made the event a very successful one in terms of I think the whole industry, as well as even in the ecosystem and the community as well. And again, we had a couple of mentor sessions. The whole point of that was because these guys are just people from various parts coming together as a team. But how do they take part properly? How do they become sportsmen? How do they fix their mindset? That was our sort of requirement with the mentors, and that's where they came in. So we actually created content around that as well. Then we created content on TikTok, which is again with them, but also with just organic content that we created from our broadcasts. Sometimes we actually had a cheerleader sort of approach, and then these also used on the broadcasts, and different sorts of engagements. And we also used our normal EDMs and SMSs, PRs, all the other normal stuff. But overall, as a campaign, this had over 11 million reach. That's what I just want to, emphasize here. This whole campaign across all of this, with a massive amount of engagement and a lot of reach across all the social platforms, had a huge impact in the esports industry. And I think rightfully so. We actually got awarded during the last Slim Digis. We won the Grand Prix award as well, purely for this campaign, for this engagement that we created across all platforms, because it was a beautiful integration that happened just throughout the event with all the content we created. I'll quickly just touch on a few others, and before I jump into questions, just a few that we work with. So Tencent Games is one of the biggest publishers globally. They do something called PUBG Mobile, and they actually have requirements to market their event, and we actually handle that aspect for them. We actually created content from Sri Lanka. We do recordings, and we actually create that content for them from here. So this is a small documentary series that we did for their PMWI event. Before that, they wanted to showcase 3 teams taking part from different regions. So we actually had crews in different countries film the footage, send it to us, where our editors would put together this, and then create this sort of docu-series, which we posted on the Tencent official PUBG Mobile pages. So you can actually go and check that out later. That's under PUBG Mobile Dreamers if you're interested. That entire production was done by Sri Lankan talent. And then we do like I said, influencers play a massive part. We work with South Asian influencers, streamers, to do watch parties. Basically, they watch the match on their channels, and that creates content and creates engagement across their audiences. So we are able to then directly market the event specifically for each region, through each influencer. We do the same actually for their global championship as their content agency. So these are all little examples, which I can go into a lot more detail, but it takes time. But these are all different brands that we worked with. I'm just going to quickly scroll through these, where we've created sort of brand integrations for them through our events, through pieces of content we create. For Samsung, through even things like tech reviews, where we have our known people take these sort of devices and do tech reviews for them. And then places like Dell Gaming, we actually we were tasked with getting a group active for them, a Facebook group, and believe it or not, with 2 quarters only, with a lot of engagements, which I can't go into detail, we were able to grow that with 40,000 plus organic members. Growing a Facebook group is probably the hardest things, because on Facebook, you can't advertise a group. You need to think of an actual engagement to do that. And there were a lot of things we did around that to make that happen. Red Bull, again, another brand that has a lot of esports involvement. We've done some of the events locally, and even at our events, we've actually gone to the level where we integrate it at a level like this is at our at our Stein event, where we had a social posting bar. And the idea was, if it reaches 100%, everyone in the hall gets Red Bull. So they need to go online, take a selfie. Sorry, they need to take the phone, go online, put a selfie up on Instagram, on Facebook, or whatever, with a hashtag. So this is the host doing the last one, and then someone comes up, hits the buzzer, and then after that you have the Red Bull Angels, if I'm not mistaken, they are called. They come and give Red Bull to everyone in the venue. So these sort of engagements are what we are able to come up with at our events, even online, not just physical events. And Logitech, another brand that we worked with heavily to promote their Logitech G lineup. So we actually did an advertisement for them, a TVC shot entirely in Sri Lanka. This was something we did for Valentine's, if I'm not mistaken. And this is entirely shot in Sri Lanka, and shot and edited and created in Sri Lanka. So we did this actually 2 years for them. This is the latest one, and then even the previous year, we did another one for the Valentine promotion. So these are all little things where we are able to come up with ideas. And as a brand, how do you take your brand to a gamer? That's the sort of question we sit down with anyone and answer with their requirements in mind. Sometimes it's reach, sometimes it's actual conversions. All of this we can discuss and sort of come up with what works best. So just this is actually 2020, I believe, Valentine's. And yes, lastly, I just want to touch on this one. This is something new. This again was something where during COVID, we wanted to see this metaverse idea blew up, right? And we wanted to see how we can get involved. So this was something where ViewSonic Gaming came to us, and we were working with them for some other engagements. And that's where we had our own metaverse already sort of being built, where we thought, we'll take that idea. So we actually got them involved. Where they would launch they usually have launch ceremonies physically done for their products, but instead of doing a physical one, we said, why not, let's do this in the metaverse. And it went off brilliantly, because each influencer there that's mentioned, 40 plus, these guys all connected remotely while streaming on their own setups, and they'd have their own personality built, a virtual character, so to speak. I have a very short, brief video here just for you to understand while I speak. And these guys then just, take part at the arena. So they come into this arena, they look at the keynote speech, all of the other, different segments, and they also interact with each of these booths. So these booths all have like videos playing, trailers, whatever. And this entire space was built by us. We have something called the Metaverse Arena, which we can customize it for any brand. We can create the same sort of engagement. And the beauty of this was each streamer has their own personality and the name on top of their, character, and they can speak to each other. The microphone ability was there. We had spatial audio in the setup built, so they can speak to the other person directly through that engagement. So it was a very new sort of novel concept, even for the ones who were taking part, because it wasn't done before. So each of the streamers were streaming on their pages. You can imagine the amount of content being consumed from the each party. So that's the sort of thing we did with this event, and this is actually something we have built on thereafter as well. And yeah, these are the interactive booths. So, and we also had actually a giveaway in this, where each person inside could look for tokens, which we had hidden inside this arena, which would then allow them to win a monitor, if I'm not mistaken. So little engagements like that. That's what you see people, there we go, retrieving these tokens. And there was a draw inside that. And, all of this happened within that space, within that engagement. And it was a very new, novel sort of concept. And these are the type of things we love doing, because it's always something fresh. We always, don't want to do the same thing that we've done every year. Lastly, a brand most people wouldn't associate with esports, probably. Perra & Sons. We worked with them, I think, for a long, long time. They first, I think, worked with us back in 2018 or 19, if I'm not mistaken. And they have continued to work in this space. We worked with them to take esports. We've created an esports series for them. In addition to, sponsoring some of our events, we've actually created a concept or a brand for them with PNS contenders. And that is something we've, done across a few years now, and where we execute this event to amplify their sales, maybe through coupon codes, or, like one year we had the top picture you see there was a promo code which can be used on Pick Me and Uber during that period of the broadcast, and we saw huge traction around it. And then things like this, where we are able to drive registrations through their outlets. So all these little things, and of course through broadcast and production elements also within the broadcast, we'd have elements that promote their brand, their products. So these are just some of the examples, and we have the capability for doing all of this is within our team. We have a very vibrant and versatile team that works with us for all these engagements, sits down with us with the brand to come up with all these ideas, and I think that's why we are able to execute all of this. So I'd be glad to take any of you in more detail. I don't have the time to go into a lot more detail, but if anyone has any questions, anything else beyond this period, please do reach out to any or through any of my socials, or even through our website. I'd be happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Ramesh. Brilliant.
Thank you.
So Ramesh, tell me,
Yes.
Let's take one brand. Let's say, for instance, Singer, the product that whole game you did with Singer. How many people did it reach?
So that specific engagement reached actually more than 11 million people through socials. 11 million plus social reaches was attained or reached on that specific engagement for that tournament. We had a lot of content that we created, like I said, and also people created themselves. And across all of these, we reached 11 million plus.
11 million
on socials.
On what kind of duration?
This was throughout the entire duration of the tournament. I cannot remember the entire, I think it was a couple of months, if I'm not mistaken, at least 2 months, because we had...
If you take one match,
right.
Let's take one match. How many matches are played?
Off the top of my head, because this is into 2021, I don't remember the exact stat, but it's a bit...
Ramesh.
I do believe we had a couple of 100 matches, which were all not broadcasted. There were some that were broadcasted, some that weren't. Across all of these is what we measure this reach on. There are other matches which don't get broadcasted because there's a lot of people. I think that we had around 2,000 plus people taking part. So we are unable to record and broadcast each of the matches, but we had done a majority of them after the qualifier stage, if I'm not mistaken. So across all of this is what we had this reach on.
So let's take the final. How many people watched the final?
I do believe we had around 3,000 to 4,000 people plus peaked concurrent viewership on the finals only. This was just during COVID and, the whole time during that period where things are a bit bleak, and it was, there were, I think, data caps, and there were little difficulties on that aspect also, but still we had, I believe, that much around 3,000, 4,000 plus concurrent viewership for the tournament.
So Ramesh, what do you mean social means what?
Social means Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of these platforms, the social media platforms that get used for this sort of content. YouTube, Twitch, we had, I think, a stream running on that. All these little social media platforms.
So what you're saying is one event, you run it on different platforms, and it's a combination of platforms that gets you this kind of viewership. Am I right?
Yes. So, and that too, just to give you an idea, depending on the brand and depending on the event. So if it's not an event, so if it's a brand, like say, for example, I showed you an example of Dell Gaming, and they had a Facebook group that needed to be promoted. Then we target and come up with ideas on how to do that. How can we promote the group on Facebook, and how can we get that going? That sort of, the specific platform is something we discuss with the client, with the brand, with the team, and then understand. If it's our events and they come on board as a sponsor, then it gets carried on all the platforms anyway, because we are very heavy in digital and we do, a lot of content across all these platforms.
So if I say if let's assume that it was 400,000 people, Ramesh,
Yes.
how much would be the cost per reach?
The CPR value, actually, I do not I was actually going to put that on this. I did not have that, but I do believe it's a very lower rate than usual. For example, Facebook ad cost would be higher than this. The reason is because we are doing a lot of these content, which we are, like I said, snowballing off. We just tag a person and that creates more engagement out of that. So that sort of, it's,
how much, Ramesh?
Sorry?
Approximately how much cost per reach?
Approximately. I think it's better if I actually look at stats and give you a number, because it's not right for me to give you a random figure. Let me actually get back to you maybe later on. Even I can just send that over. I don't have the actual number for me to give you.
What I'm trying to do is it 50 cents? Is it 1 rupee? Is it 2 rupees?
I do believe it's in dollars. So I think it's around 1 or less, if I'm not mistaken.
$1.
Yeah, or less than that, if I'm not mistaken. Again, don't quote me on this, because I have to look at the numbers properly.
So you're saying $1 per reach?
Well,
it can't be.
No, it's less, because for us, we actually didn't boost most of this content. This is mostly organic. Okay. So I think, again, like I said, it should be less. It's probably a 0.5 to 6 range. But again, don't quote me on that, because I need to actually speak to our digital team and get the numbers. I wasn't able to do that for this. Yeah.
Okay. It will be interesting to see, because when we do advertising on TV, the first question I will ask is, how much does it cost to reach a consumer?
Sure.
And then we look at that is first is cost per thousand, which is CPT, and then we'll also look at cost per rating point, Ramesh, and that's how we buy media. So that will be interesting. And the second one, Ramesh, is what is the target group that you think do this in terms of how we can reach these people? I mean, the target group you think would be the most viable to reach in terms of age?
Do you mean through esports, who do you reach is what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Right. So like I said earlier, is predominantly the younger age groups. So that would be from anywhere from 18 to 25 is our main group, which is very active in all of these tournaments, all of these events. But beyond that, like I told you, I think that day we met, as well as through our session today, the 26 to 35 age group is also a group that can be targeted through esports, and that is active in esports, also through the mercantile level events, through other events that we do. And this keeps growing. Or the age group keeps growing higher, because as these people mature, they still keep getting engaged with esports content. So the person who's 18 will still watch that content or consume that content when they are 35 or when they're 45. Even below 18, through events like the school event, we are able to, target, or rather work with that audience. But it's very hard to work with all brands, because there are some brands that are not allowed to work with people under 18, and there are laws on things that we need to also kind of work around. But I'd say, if you want to know an active range, 18 to 25 is probably a good subset to think of. So let me also add something there. Sorry, this is a target group that is very hard to touch with TV commercials or radio or the traditional, sort of media. And they are very digital first. They always consume their content in the digital format. Even if it's a cricket match being played, they'd rather watch it on their computer, their laptop, or their mobile, rather than actually turning on the TV. So that is how it is. So just want to
Ramesh,
that as well.
Do you see that particular group that you're like between the people who are between 18 and 25, are they having a geographic biasness?
In Sri Lanka, it's a bit urban. So we have the cities, like I showed you that map, I believe, for the school event. It's pretty much similar to that. We have the big cities where they have a lot of people involved with, and, they get engaged. But something we've realized over the years across COVID and how it has progressed is now it's reaching everywhere, because now everyone has a mobile phone. Like I said, mobile penetration is very high. So now the content, the sort of the short form videos that we put, all of this is consumed with no bias for a specific region, which is what we've noticed. So even if it's in Jaffna, these days we're actually doing an event with Dialogue, actually called the All Island Free Fire Tournament. This is with our association, Sri Lanka Esports Association, and for that we actually do sorts of content even in different languages for each region. Because we know that it's not Colombo centric, it's not Kandy centric, it's not urban centric anymore. That's what it used to be, but we've seen that change, and now we notice how anyone with a phone can get involved, and they do get involved with esports and the content that we create.
So Ramesh, when you run a program, what is the bandwidth of a target consumer? Like, for instance, how long can you hold on to a consumer using a screen?
Well, that is interesting, because it again comes down to the sort of engagement we plan. And I would say there is no set number, because it depends entirely on the sort of give and take. So example, if during a tournament, we have like a giveaway coupon with a target, say 100 shares of this video will have a progressive bar, and at 100 you get a set of coupon codes visible on screen, right? Then people will stay on, and we've seen that happen, and then people are retained. But if it's just an advertisement shown, it's much less, right? So that's what I mentioned earlier. We sit down with the brand, we come up with a concept, we come up with a strategy. How do we get the brand out there? How do we get people, like you rightfully said, to retain and stay on? Sometimes it's maybe at a physical event it's different. It's a different ball game altogether. But if it's online, it's a different strategy we need to take, and it depends. There is no fixed number or fixed way, I'd say. Again, it comes down to the brand and how we can approach the brand, how we can integrate it natively with the tournament, with the event, with the type of content they want to create, that sort of thing.
Ramesh, you talked about the inter-university competition that you held.
Yes.
What was that?
So this is something these events the 3 events that I mentioned, inter-university, mercantile, inter-school, are 3 tiers basically for each form of life. Let's say we have these each year. We started from 2016. We've had this happen annually. Even through COVID, we had them online, except I think inter-school for the first year, we dropped it because we had issues in trying to get it organized within the period of time. But every other event we've had across the year. So inter-university, we are, I think, just opening registrations for the 2023 event today. And that is an event which is for universities to take part. So we have APIT, SLIT, NSBM, students putting themselves up for registration through the titles, basically for PUBG Mobile, League of Legends, depends on the titles each year. We have, I think, around 14 to 20 titles every year, which we do. Titles are the actual games. So you have Call of Duty 4, Call of Duty Mobile. All of these different games are titles. These titles are
how
open.
Many, Ramesh, how many people can you reach?
In terms of reach, I do believe our campaigns last year, so these are all organic, and we don't actually put a lot of push into this. I believe we reached around 1 to 2 million plus, if I'm not mistaken. And these are all done. Again, I don't have the cost numbers for you, but again, that's a stat I will definitely look at and find and send across to you for you to maybe share with everyone.
Approximate
values also probably closer to the previous amounts, but a little higher than that, because the reach numbers are less.
How
and
much,
we don't
Ramesh?
around,
because see, our target people now, it's a new product, they want to understand how much approximately.
Right. I think I'd be doing injustice if I give you a wrong number, which is why I don't want to commit to a number because I actually don't have the number with me at the moment. But I do believe again 0.67 range or yeah, around that much.
Anyway, I'm saying the whole event will cost how much? 1
Oh,
million, 2 million?
Oh, the event. So if it's a physical event, it's depends again, depending on the sponsorship, package. We have packages starting all the way from, I think, 1 million onwards, where we cater to each, sort of brand differently. So if example, if we take a brand that is into beverages, like you saw the Red Bull instance, if it's Coke, for example, it's a different strategy where we pile on more add-ons, where we think of more ways to integrate, and then the package gets higher. Whatever said and done, our main KPI requirement there comes from the brand. We sit down with them and understand what do you want to target, what do you want to hit. And then based on that, customize the engagement. So for Coke, for example, we had the physical event where we had Coke bottles placed under each person's share. And then, we had a competition around that. Then we had the printer from Coke, I think, with the customized name where they can go to that, print their name or anyone's name on the label, take that, and they can go gift it to someone, etc. Different sorts of engagements where we can come up with ideas based on the brand's requirement. So again, depending on the brand's capability to spend, what they want to achieve, we'd be able to cater to that. We are not at a hard set. I'm not going to give you a 10 million rupee package saying that is that's where we cut off. It's not like that. We speak with the brand because we want to make sure that it's not just a logo slapped on an event, or it's not just a haphazard content poster that's created. It's something more beyond that, where we can understand what the brand needs.
So Ramesh, I mean, there's a lot of interest on this. I mean, I'm getting so many questions coming on WhatsApp, but I just want the final question that we have is, now all this is done in terms of creating awareness and making the brand top of the mind. And then ultimately, people go and ask for the brand or they buy the brand.
Yes.
So do you have any data either from a Sri Lankan case study or from a global case study where by engaging consumers through esports, where your sales have increased? What do you have?
Sales
that kind
conversions. Yes, I can get that for you, but I don't have it ready on this deck at the moment. But we do have instances where, for example, through Esports Parent Sons has benefited, like I mentioned, from their engagements, which is why they keep on coming. As a traditional brand, they would never continue without that also, because that has helped them grow. Then we have had instances like that where we've had, the whole brand reach being a factor for them to convert into sales through engagements. Again, that comes with the brand's sort of mindset also, because they need to kind of be open with us and on what exactly needs to happen. And if it's not a KPI number that is on reach, if it's a KPI number for certain purchases, for example, we've done that with certain telco brands, for example, where they needed certain purchases of a portal to be done, and we then create an engagement around that where we'd say, okay, we can come up with this content, let's do it like this, and then execute that, where they would then reach that required number and the outcome expected. So those type of things are doable, and unfortunately I don't have exact statistics which I can divulge at this point, but if anyone is interested, please feel free to reach out. I will definitely be able to give you more information, more statistics, examples, and take you through a conversation as to how we can get that going for any brand.
Thank you very much, Ramesh. Ladies and gentlemen, a brilliant youngster, a person who has innovated together with a team, creating a new wave, and I mean, getting 11 million people on board for activation is really fantastic. I mean, it just tells you the kind of new vehicle that we have seen to reach target consumers who are for different age group, very screen led. And I think what's more important to understand is not the reach, but it's more to do with the engagement that you get, which is the most difficult part we have with the consumer now. we really don't know whether the consumer is listening. We don't know whether the consumer has actually consumed your brand, not in terms of consumption in terms of a mouth, but consumption in terms of the brain. And that is the kind of data that you get through this. So it's more to do with awareness and engagement that makes your brand much more stronger in a person's life. So I think it's brilliant stuff. Thank you so much, Ramesh.
Thank you
And
for this
Ruth, are
opportunity.
you around? Ruth had a connectivity issue. So thank you so much. We really enjoyed it, Ramesh. And since there is no other question, we'll keep in touch. And please note that if you have any requirements for interns, please do get in touch with Ruth.
Sure.
And Ruth
Will do.
will make sure in terms of finding people who will fit into you, to your requirements, so that there is kind of a absolutely free service which has been done. And I would really like to work with you in the future.
Splendid.
I've already shared all your data with RoadTrack. In fact, RoadTrack is going to organize a Rotasia, a large South Asian workshop. And last Thursday, I met up with them and I briefed them about the kind of product that you have. And they're really excited because people are coming from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Maldives. So you will have to maybe develop some product catered into that, which has a high engagement. And of course, the sponsors would be the traditional sponsors like the Pepsis and the Cokes and the Dialogues who are in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Catch you
having me.
soon.
Thank you. See you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Goodbye.
Bye. Night.